In Revenge of the Sith, we get to see the first and only grand battle between the Dark Lord Darth Sidious and the Grand Master of the Jedi in Yoda. Both of them were representatives of their respective allegiances to the Force, and the battle between them was not simply two individuals fighting with lightsabers and Force abilities, but rather was the embodiment of the light and the dark battling for the soul of the galaxy. The fight is the grand culmination of 7,000 years of conflict between the Jedi and the Sith. Sidious himself was well aware of this fact, and had been preparing for this day for an extremely long period of time. Sidious was actually pleased that Yoda had survived Order 66, just so that he could kill the Jedi Grand Master himself. However, despite Sidious absolutely hating every member of the Jedi Order, he ironically did not hate Yoda. In fact, from circumstantial evidence, we can draw the conclusion that Sidious may have respected the old master, and he even left the duel with Yoda in the Senate Hall with a level of admiration towards the old green creature. So why was this? Why would someone as hateful and spiteful towards the Jedi as Sidious actually come to respect their leader? Well, it's time to open up a holocron and discover why, and how Sidious and Yoda's relationship changed over their lifetime. To begin, we need to establish something and be very clear. Palpatine regarded Yoda as an enemy and a hurdle towards his ultimate success. He also believed that Yoda shared in the sins of the entire Jedi Order, that he was blinded by his own power and arrogance. Yoda himself would later admit to the latter of what Sidious believed to be true. Yoda had indeed grown arrogant, and had allowed the Jedi Order to do so as well, even going as far as to say that it may have been a good thing that the Jedi were destroyed, and that they needed to be remade. It was the will of the Force, and for the first time in galactic history, it was the Sith whom the Force ultimately chose. The dark side was the catalyst that would one day bring balance. Actually, Yoda agreed with Dooku and Sidious in this regard. However, of course they were adversaries. Sidious played into the hands of his own beliefs. Sidious had very little respect for the light side of the Force, if any at all, and he believed that it was just as simple as irrefutable truth that the existence of the dark side was stronger. And with the experience that Sidious had, could anyone blame him for coming to this conclusion? Sidious learned from an early age that if one was stronger, richer, more powerful, more cunning than anyone else, that they would be able to achieve anything they wanted, and that the desires of others simply stood in their way. The strong were meant to rule, the weak were meant to serve. Sheev was taught this by example whenever he would get into trouble, and his father Kasinga Palpatine bailed him out, bribing people along the way, paying off whoever it took to get his son off scot-free. Sheev was never punished, and therefore never learned consequence. He only learned how to better manipulate those around him. And because of this, he grew extremely attractive to the dark side. He had a latent desire to rule, and it would be the dark side that would give him revenge on the family that would one day reject him, the dark side that would love him. And because of Plagueis, Sidious never suffered the consequences of doing that either, as his crime was swept under the rug. Palpatine had absolutely no respect for the Jedi whatsoever because of the simple fact that they embodied everything that he despised. The Jedi had power, more power than anyone, and yet they defended the weak rather than ruling over them. With the power of a Jedi, one could become like a god if they wanted to. But the Jedi fought to defend and to preserve rather than to dominate and control. Palpatine not only did not understand this, but he deemed it a waste. But what made things even worse is that the Jedi did this without thinking that anyone could possibly challenge them, believing that they were indomitable, the ultimate force in the galaxy, forever serving the weak while acting as if they did not need protection from a stronger looming threat. This made Sidious angry in ways that he could not put into words. Once Palpatine discovered and became powerful in the ways of the dark side though, he realized a power that would forever put the Jedi in their place, getting revenge for the Sith that had been humiliated by those Jedi weaklings for centuries. And at the top of the pecking order was Yoda, Sidious's direct counterpart. And Sidious was not blind to this. Yoda was the one calling the shots, allowing all of this to persist all along with the rest of the council. To Sidious, Yoda was a fool, as well as the rest of them. Yet, as much as Sidious wanted to, he could never hate the little green creature, especially not after he met him firsthand, and grew to know and better understand the Jedi Grand Master. As inferior to the dark side as the light was in Sidious's opinion, he could not help but admire how much power Yoda had gained. No doubt that Sidious had already heard of the stories from Dooku, who was on record as saying that the Jedi Order's main problem was actually Yoda. To Dooku, he says that no one who holds that much power for as long as Yoda has can avoid being corrupted by it. Here's the thing that many should and need to understand about Sidious. Sidious respects all power wherever it is found, whether through the Force or through machinery. Though he obviously thought the power of the Force was stronger, Sidious admired the destructive capability of something like the Death Star, and even loved it. And even though he knew that the ways of the Sith were superior, he still feared the unknown power of Mother Talzin and the power that she commanded. And to Sidious, the only being in the galaxy that could possibly understand the power that he himself commanded would be his opposite. Someone who astoundingly had found great power in the light side, something that Sidious believed nigh impossible. Yoda had achieved all this while using an inferior side of the Force. The duel on Coruscant was incredibly enlightening for the Emperor as well. For the first time, he felt the true power of Yoda's reputation. In the beginning, he warned Vader that he felt a certain danger within the Force. At that moment, he ceased communication, and Sidious saw Yoda. Then, Sidious immediately believed that Yoda was the danger. We covered in a previous holocron how Yoda tricked Palpatine so that the Dark Lord would not sense Obi-Wan's arrival on Mustafar, which was the true source of the danger for Anakin. But this is still a testament to what Sidious thought of Yoda, that he believed that the old master was the source of his perceived disturbance, a real threat. He attacked Yoda with Force lightning, but then the Grand Master stood up barely phased and unleashed an unrelenting Force push of his own, sending the Emperor across the room. We need to remember that Sidious does not get touched with the Force by anyone. He is always the strongest in the room. The amount of fear that he must have felt in that moment would have been palpable. And we know from details from Legends continuity that the only other person who had touched him with the Force in such a violent manner was his own master Darth Plagueis many years earlier. Instantly, Sidious realized the danger that he was in and decided to lure Yoda into the narrow hallway where his Ataru style would be less effective in the compressed space. However, Yoda is fast and cut off the Emperor, issuing a formal challenge. At first, Sidious enjoyed the battle, the likes of showing off his true strength. But it soon becomes apparent that the old master, who has 9 centuries of Jedi discipline, is beginning to grow stronger as the battle continues. And a frightening thought entered Sidious's mind. Could the Jedi be more powerful than I initially comprehended? Sensing this, Sidious immediately switches to using the Force, where he believes he is the superior. But still, the Grand Master keeps pace, although just barely. The duel ends with a clash of light and dark, concluding with an explosion of power that sends both of them toppling off the edge of the platform. Yoda, now out of time and energy, flees the scene, leaving Sidious to reflect on their battle. To Sidious, he had not experienced the power of Yoda, impressed with how Yoda dealt with the Force lightning, and had even turned it against the Conjurer. Sidious left realizing that not only were all of the rumors about Yoda's power true, but even the rumors did not do the Jedi Grandmaster justice. Sidious still believed that he was the more powerful, but Yoda, as a Sith, would be extremely powerful, maybe even more powerful than Sidious, a real rival. So perhaps this was for the best. Perhaps the Grandmaster belonged in the light side, forever held back. But Sidious could not help but know that although Yoda was a Jedi, he was the one who came the closest to understanding what true power meant. And because of that, Sidious couldn't possibly hate him, and even thought about Yoda during his reign as the Emperor often, missing his foil. Every now and then he would dispatch some probe droids or a search team to try and find the old master. But Sidious never committed to the search, not even bothering to send Vader after Yoda, because as Sidious would later taunt his new apprentice, he believed that Yoda would absolutely embarrass Vader, saying that he was lucky that it was not Yoda who had come for him on Mustafar. But that wouldn't stop Sidious from relishing in the satisfaction that he got from knowing that Yoda was out there hiding somewhere, his great power covered up, watching as the galaxy he loved was warped and ruled by the Sith. And although they were great enemies, there was no one that understood the power and the importance of the culmination of the Sith better than Yoda did. And for that reason, Sidious could not possibly hate him. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on Sidious's and Yoda's relationship, and the respect and admiration that Sidious shockingly has for his light side counterpart? As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel, and may the Force be with you.